Hey guys, this is KSP with Tape, and today you join me for episode 52 of KSP Road to Exploration. And today we start by sending off the rover to Duna, because we sent off everything last time, but I had a few issues with this. For some reason, which just sort of stopped, I don't know, weird stuff happens. So yeah, now I'm just going to send this off to Duna, and that will be everything on its way, getting ready. This is, of course, the rover in its nice little shell, which is totally pointless and a massive waste of mass and fuel, but I really wanted to have like a landing structure because I love that kind of stuff. It also has the 2 communications satellites, which are important to improve our communications network around Duna, because we have 2 satellites there, and obviously the resource store also has a long-range communication device on it, but it would be nice to have more. And there is the scanner for ore, because next time we head to Duna, which will be probably not that long from now, given how this series will be going from now on, but I'll explain more of that later on in future episodes, because I do have a master plan for that, and it's going to be great. But yeah, that will be scanning for ore so that we can eventually mine on Duna, and maybe even turn it into a new home, because I also have a mod I haven't used at all yet, which allows you to build new spacecraft using stuff you mine, which is really cool. I just haven't implemented it because we've been busy on our road to exploration. But now we've almost completed our road to exploration and we are exploring, so that's pretty cool. So anyway, this will be heading off. It just easily gets out with its 3 nuclear engines and tons of fuel. And then it will kind of arrive a month after everything else. It's all going to be staggered with stuff getting to Duna. Of course, the resource store gets there first because it has a long-range communication device, which is very important because the base doesn't, and it needs to communicate when it gets to Duna. So anyway, yeah, we'll do a quick tweak here, as you can see, and that will pull us in nice and close to Duna for its landing at the base, which will be good because we have a little rover on here, which we really want to, do awesome stuff with. Anyway, so while that's happening, we have many things to do, one of which is changing the course on the Phoenix 1, which is bound for Eeloo, actually. So we're just doing a quick plane change and tweak so that this will actually arrive in a nice trajectory past Eeloo. So yeah, this is just using the 4 small nuclear engines, and yeah, the plane change is now almost done, and this will arrive at Eeloo and probably won't have any electric charge because the sun is far away. But yeah, and we need to do a little bit more of stuff to make it, turn the right way. So we turn a little bit and then we just pull ourselves in close. And it looks good, yeah. Oh, little snowy rock in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, next thing to do, plane change for Concordia. This is a very busy episode, but we're going to have a bunch of plane changes, and for Concordia needs to be getting closer to Duna so that it can get into a reasonable orbit, and that will be good. So we're just going to fire up the nuclear engines. Obviously the booster engine is all out of fuel because I use that to escape Kerbal, because I hate long burns around Kerbal. I know, very inefficient of me, but I also like the multi-engine kind of hybrid setup of this. But yeah, and this is all easy because we have crew on board, so we don't have to deal with signal delay and communication stuff. But yeah, we're going to want to pull it in a little closer. We're going to actually get an icon counter, which will help us a tiny bit, and that'll be rather nice. So yes, this is all on its way, but we're in deep space right now. We should be doing some science. Let's put the scientists in the science lab, get a little bit of science, and start working before we even get to Duna. So yeah, we'll take a few scientific reports, throw them in the lab, and get working on some stuff, because the Hermes station, while still operational, only has 1 scientist on it right now, so we're not doing a ton of research, and we still have things we want to unlock, like, I've forgotten, but there are some, I think. Maybe bigger engines and stuff, I don't know, we already have the biggest engines we need. I love those vector engines. Anyway, that's all done. Now we just need to use a flight computer to move the resource station and its on its plane change, which was very quick and is already done, because it was using a huge amount of liquid fuel engines, but it's not quite right, so we're going to have to move it, and after a lot of very slow rotation, because I'm apparently allergic to reaction wheels, but we do eventually get ourselves pointing the right way, and we have to shut down all of the outer engines, because we wouldn't be able to be precise enough to get it into the right position if we didn't do that, because it has a lot of thrust, because I'm allergic to slow burns. Allergic to a lot of space things today, apparently, but yes, that should be in a nice orbit. We're going to keep it fairly high, make it easy to rendezvous with, and since it's a communication device, you don't want it too low down. And then we have another thing to do, a very important mission, the first mission that will attempt to get off of Eve. If you remember, a while ago I sent this down to Eve, and this is a rocket which is, well, built to get off of Eve. So we need to do a bit of a tweak, because floating point error seems to be wreaking havoc with things today. So we're going to bring this in nice and close to Eve, and I leave it there and then realize, wait, that's the wrong side, we won't be able to communicate, so I just continue the burn here and get it all flipped around so that we're going to come on the dark side of Eve, and that'll be rather good, although make it slightly harder to land. I probably should have just told the flight computer to get us into orbit. I don't know what I was thinking. But hey, that'll be fine, we'll work through the problems. So yes, and here we are at Eve. We just need to go and get into an orbit, any kind of orbit we can manage, and we can tweak it later, because that's the nice thing about Eve. There's no big moons that'll throw you around like on Duna or Jool. You can just, Gilly, you have to really try to get to Gilly. It's not an easy thing. Well, it's not massively hard, but it's in a weird orbit and it has very low gravity, so, Anyway, so we're at the periapsis now, and we're going to fire up the engines. And there's some kind of weird glitch. You can see down the bottom left, it looks like my two engines have a different amount of fuel. It just seems to not be piping fuel properly. That's fine. The tanks it should be piping fuel from are already out of fuel, so yeah, I don't know what that's about. I guess save files get glitchier and glitchier when you have this amount of mods. But yes, we're going to bring ourselves down. You can see there's already a couple of probes on Eve. The one we landed on and then didn't have any electric charge. And of course the MechJeb unit, which fell away from an old probe, which actually flew past Moho and then came to Eve. Yes, we do love Eve very much. We one day want to land Kerbals on Eve and leave Eve, because it's hard to get off of Eve. So that's what this mission is testing out. There'll probably be subsequent missions to this because of various reasons, and also this one might not succeed. But we definitely don't want to strand Kerbals on Eve, because it's kind of, you don't want to live here. It's high gravity, it's thick atmosphere, it's poison, you can't take off your helmet. It's not great. But anyway, it looks like we're going to get into a nice orbit here. We've got a bunch of fuel, not into a circular orbit, but it's slow enough that we'll be able to drop down. Anyway, after a lot of time warping so that the nice big patch of land is on the other side, we'll be able to deorbit. Sadly, we will be deorbiting in the dark, but we'll be illuminated by fire and ambient light, although I still haven't upgraded the ambient light mod. Really should do that. But anyway, yes, we get ourselves into a periapsis of about 70 kilometers, which will be enough that hopefully we won't just burn up through the heat shield, and hopefully we'll still be high enough that we'll land where we still have communications, because I haven't set up these parachutes for that. Anyway, so we decouple the transfer stage, we deploy the heat shield. It'll take a little while because of the signal delay, but in a few seconds it should deploy in all of its glory. 10-meter heat shield. There you can see it, looking rather nice. Now, the problem with this is Eve has a bit of a thick atmosphere, and this has a very off-center mass, because the communications device is on one side, so it does actually want to pull backwards. However, what I'm going to do to counter this is rotate the spacecraft so it'll oscillate rather than just tip one way and flip over. And I don't have to do this for long, because you slow down very quickly in Eve and stop burning up very quickly, because it's such a thick atmosphere so quickly. So if I can make it through the first kind of minute of deorbit, that will be okay. But we're also running out of electric charge, which is a problem. However, that doesn't matter, because this is not effective enough, and we start to oscillate more and more and more and more until eventually we inevitably, I've said this too early, but until we flip over. Oh, there we go. Yeah, we flip over, the spacecraft is destroyed, and the heat shield flies on and is destroyed, and then, well, no, the heat shield isn't destroyed, so I desperately try and find the heat shield, because this mission has obviously failed, but if we can see the heat shield has survived, so we know this is a durable enough heat shield to enter Eve. So we will try this again at some point, with a better built vehicle. That one was terribly built in many ways, mostly the mass being off-center. So yeah, this sucks. I was so looking forward to this mission, but hey, things fail. Space is hard. Eve is especially hard. But hey, we know the heat shield works, and we will come back, and we will leave Eve. So yes, this will fall. Well, I'm going to watch this fall all the way to the ground, because it'll be a long fall, because it's a giant heat shield which slows stuff down, so we'll be traveling quite slowly. In more bad news, on our way to Jool, our spacecraft has reached the point where it's not generating enough power to power up its antenna, which means this will also kind of not be able to do much around Jool. However, I am not letting something not get to Jool again. You can see we have a natural orbital insertion using Tylo, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the flight computer to do the maneuver. I'm going to shut down the antenna. I did try to use action groups on this, totally not through save file editing, so that I could turn it off and then turn it on again at a later date, but it just didn't work, which is probably fair because it was safe file editing. But hey, I wanted to see if it was an option. So yeah, this will get into orbit of Jool, and it will do it by flying by Tylo. So we'll fly by we'll fly by Jool, we'll fly by Tylo, and by the looks of it, we'll also fly by Val, although it actually turns out to be we'll fly by Lathe. So this will be a useful mission, and it will put a bunch of resources, if this isn't flung off into the solar system by all of the moons. It will put a bunch of useful resources into orbit of Jool. So for these kind of missions, you really do need RTGs, and I really wish I'd brought them. It's just remote tech takes a lot of power for those big antennas. But hey, this isn't a total failure. This is much better than Eagle 1. It will get into orbit of Jool, and it will be awesome. So yeah, let's just be happy that it's going to indeed get into a nice orbit of Jool and encounter Val, maybe hit Val, who knows. But it will be cool. So yes, in future I will have to use RTGs because I just underestimate the power requirements of remote tech parts. Kind of sucks, but hey, not that bad, and it will be cool to do a flyby kind of insertion. Anyway, back to Duna. We are with the rover now, many days later. This has been the turn this has been an episode which has taken the most days of all of them because I haven't done any launches. I'm just going to Duna right now because we are, completing our road to exploration. This series, it's maybe, coming to an end. Don't worry, it's not what you think. I'll explain it later. But anyway, so we do our plane change, and we are going to get on to Duna now. And hopefully that will, it's looking pretty good. We're getting pretty close. But anyway, finally, the Duna resource station arrives at Duna. The first thing to get there, the thing that we need to get there, I'm just dealing with some flight computer bullshit down on the bottom, but this has a long-range communications device, and if it's in the right position when the base gets here, it won't matter that the base doesn't have a long-range antenna on it. It will be able to get into orbit by relaying its signal to this. And there's a pretty good chance, because we also have another satellite in orbit of Duna. So if I put this in a fairly opposing side to it, it should work. Hopefully. Maybe. Probably. So yes, we're going to just push this into orbit. We're going to do it manually, because the flight computer doesn't really like all of this thrust and not strutted fuel tanks. But yes, there we go. Nice orbit, very easy because, lots of thrust, lots of delta V, lots of communications ease. So that's rather nice. And this is the first thing in orbit of Duna, hell yeah. But anyway, this is what my flight computer thinks I need to do because of floating point error for the base. I told the flight computer to get me in orbit of Duna. However, the flight computer seems to have forgotten that. It seems HAL 9000 is not happy with my plans. I'm sorry, Jay, but I can't let you do that. So we're going to put all of our hopes in getting a downlink from either the resource station or the communication satellite that I sent there a while ago, the Kestrel 1, the first probe we ever sent to another planet. So what I'm going to do is put it into a higher orbit slightly. However, just before I do that, I realize I've got a bunch of achievements for getting a flyby of Jool, and it appears the Eagle 2 in this time has reached Jool already. Luckily, it's over a month until it reaches periapsis, but hey, it's reached Jool, and it looks like it's actually going to get an encounter with Lathe, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that was a surprise. I was like, oh my god, what did I miss it? But I totally didn't, so that's cool. Anyway, back to Kestrel 1. We're going to boost the periap so we're in a better orbit for communicating after I open all of these UIs by accident. So we're going to burn off the rest of the fuel, the final 80 meters per second, and use this as a much more effective communications satellite, which should hopefully allow us to get the base into orbit, because it really needs to get into orbit because it's the base. We need that for the mission and all of the additional resources for being on the surface. If not, we can only do a 30-day mission to the surface, and that's not good enough. So yes, anyway, we're coming down here. Wonder if we can get a communication, and then we do. With the Kestrel 1, we get a communication and are able to put this into the right orientation. Now, this may not sustain, but it's a good sign. It's a really, really good sign. And as we drift down, we will no doubt lose that communication as we move behind Duna relative to Kestrel 1. But hopefully, the Duna resource station will come around just in time to give me a nice communication link. And hey, it looks like it's looking pretty good. So I move down to periapsis, gain communications, then lose it just before the periapsis, but mercifully, just after the periapsis, I get it back, fire up the engines, and start my work getting into orbit of Duna. So yes, it is looking like the base will indeed arrive at Duna, and we can complete our full mission, which is awesome. First time's a charm. So yeah, mission control is celebrating gloriously. I was celebrating at this point. I was like, yes, I didn't think this would work. And it will be fine now because I can bring it into a lower orbit and just kind of drop it onto the surface of Duna. It won't be a problem on the surface of Duna because it has a good communications device for planetary work, but not for interplanetary work. So here I'm just making sure I won't encounter Ike anytime soon. So what I'm going to do is actually just drop myself use the flight computer to drop my orbit a little bit, and then get myself into a circular orbit, probably using the flight computer again. Because the flight computer, you can tell it what to do when you have communications, and then when you lose communications, it can carry on anyway, because it's all pre-programmed and stuff. Because we are going to lose communications up here, because we are too far from any of the satellites. We do have a satellite very far from Duna, as you can see, in a high orbit, but that's too far from us to communicate with us. So yeah. Anyway, we arrive here, and the flight computer gets us into the right orientation and will no doubt put us into the right orbit, because the flight computer is very accurate. It's very nice. So yes, looking rather good. Now there's just a small problem of landing this thing. Not an easy task because it's such a weirdly shaped thing. I'm hoping it doesn't burn up. It probably won't because it's Duna, but you never know. So yeah. Anyway, we're going to head down here. Spend off most of the Delta V in the transfer stage to get us into a circular orbit, and then the individual vehicles will be able to drop themselves onto the surface themselves, which is rather nice. I'm rather happy about all of this. It's going rather well. We do get communications back briefly, but the station's going to drift behind Duna, which is not a problem. The flight computer will do this burn for us. But oh, look at that. Look at Duna. So beautiful, especially with a scatterer mod. Duna is definitely one of my... may even be my favourite planet in KSP. I know it's like the closest one and stuff, but it is just sort of just hauntingly beautiful with its kind of snowy poles and nice looking landscape and just beautifully textured everything. I love it very much. So yes, we fire up the engines one final time and get us ourselves into a circular orbit. Yes, the road to exploration is, one step longer or something like that. Of course, what do you do after exploration? I guess you populate. Follow-up series? Gonna start dropping hints about that, but yeah. I'll explain that more in future episodes, but I have a plan for how this will transition into the next phase of this, and it's probably gonna be a new series, because I think these are going to be very different things. Anyway, now it is time for the Concordia to finally arrive at Duna. It is going to be rather glorious. We have our crew on board. It's looking beautiful here. We get Jebediah coming out for the first spacewalk, and we take an EVA report, and we get back in there, bash our heads a bit, but hey, space is more art than science. And then we're going to start dropping down, and then I realize I should be taking scientific reports from high above Duna, so I start doing that right now. Take some material space, throw it all in the lab, and then I'll probably retake them and just store them in the capsule or something like that. Although I'll have plenty of opportunities to do this. We're also going to fly by Ike, and I'm going to grab a bunch of science as we do that, because when the lander goes up to Ike, it's not going to be able to take all of the experiments from high above Ike, because it'll have limited, scientific equipment. It can only take one of these modules, which, isn't ideal. But hey, it's fine. We can do it as we pass by. And I'm just going to retake all of these experiments and kind of keep them, because obviously I put the rest in the lab and we want to keep the experiments themselves anyway. So we get Jeb out, just go and grab all of the science. Obviously all of the other Kerbals are itching to get out of the capsules and walk around in space, but they've been doing that plenty on the way here, off camera. I obviously didn't get the Kerbals and walk around. I don't care about them that much. I did build them a big-ass spacecraft where you don't really need it though. But anyway... here we are, just about to fly by Ike, staring down that beautiful rock, which is, cooler than Dres, and, Dres is harder to get to. We're going to start uploading, now we have communications, we're going to start sending a bunch of the data we've already researched back to Kerbal, which is really going to be rather great. And, there's a bunch more science we can use to get cool things for the next mission to Duna, and missions to other places, got to get some money for those RTGs, they're not cheap. But yes, we get Jeb out once again actually, I think this might be Adam Kerman. I don't fully remember. And we're going to just start grabbing all of the data out of here and things. And then we'll tell the science lab to reset all of the experiments. So yeah, just clean the experiments, get this guy out again, get another EVA report. All good. And then we'll fly on down to our periapsis and get into orbit of Duna. This one will be fairly easy, especially compared to the base, because we have local control. Kerbal's compiled it, thank God. Oh, remote tech. well, I was going to say the bane of my life, but I do love it. It adds like a nice amount of, oh, look at that shot. Oh, look at that thumbnail shot. And the remote tech does add a nice amount of challenge to this. And I'm just looking through all of the spacecraft now, seeing how much living space they have. And then I get in the cockpit, open up some of these UIs on the raster prop monitors. That's the raster prop mod, by the way. It gives you lots of nice things inside the vehicle. Rather beautiful. And then soon we'll get into orbit. I've slipped a little over periapsis because I forgot that this doesn't have a great thrust-to-weight ratio without the booster engine. But it doesn't matter. We've got tons of delta V on this. And we have a whole resource station full of fuel if we really need it. And this has more than enough delta V to get back to Kerbal and slow down enough that it wouldn't be problematic. So we shouldn't worry. I'm probably not going to take it out to Ike because I think the landers have enough fuel for that. I'm pretty sure. And I'll only be taking one lander out. Also, when I go back to Kerbal, I won't be bringing fully fueled landers. Or maybe I might actually leave all of the... I'm going to leave one of the landers here. So, yeah, it doesn't matter too much. So I'll have more Delta V on the way back anyway. So then we're just going to circularize our orbit and just stare at the marvel that is Duna. We have finally achieved this. I know it's been a long time, but that's really what this series has been to me. Just a kind of slow, relentless grind of a jaunt through the kind of getting enough science to do an amazingly awesome mission to Duna, which I think this really is. And now we're going to look at the spacecraft. And yeah, of course, after this, there will be a series which I'm thinking will be called Road to Colonization, which will be just a follow-on from this in the same save. It's pretty much just a new name with kind of a different sort of goal, you know. I just think it needs a bit of a refresh, and it's kind of series 2 of this, you know. That's what I'm thinking it'll be. But anyway, we have reached Duna, and there will be a few more episodes of this, of course. And that's going to be awesome, and I hope you do come back for the future episodes of this where we land on Duna and explore Ike and do all of that. And I'll explain all of this new series stuff, which sounds probably confusing right now, in future videos. But yeah, right now, this is the end of the episode, and if you want to go check out a couple more videos, there is a video I did yesterday, which is my latest episode of Fall of Kerbal, in which we have just loads of really intense battles and really fight with Penguin, and it's great. And then there's a video I did a few days ago where I built a flying bunker. It's a bunker that flies and shoots stuff, and I make 2 of them fight, and it's awesome. So you should check that out. There are also links to my Twitter, Twitch, and Patreon in the description. But as always, I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been Caspi with Tape. I'll see you next time.